Hi everyone, I'm here now. I think I'm just gonna rely on you to share tonight. Oops, I'm not sure you can hear me yet. Hang on. Hello, hello. I think I'm gonna rely on you to share tonight. Not sure you can hear me yet. Hang on. Oh, there you are. You could hear me. Very good. Okay, welcome. I'm coming into the main page now. Very good. Okay, I just cut off the echo. Thanks for telling me you can hear me. Russ says Joe Biden has a lot of wind in his spinnaker right now. A spinnaker is a sailboat, isn't it? Dale says, I hear you loud and clear. Okay, let's briefly go over things as they stand now, and then let us talk about it. Okay, let's start with the Mississippi primary. According to Politico, with almost 74% of the precincts in, Joe Biden has 81.0% of the vote. Bernie Sanders has 15.0% of the vote. If he doesn't lose any more percentages for the rest of the night, then he will still be entitled to some delegates, okay, in Mississippi, however few. If he gets 15% of the delegates, though, that would take away some delegates from Joe Biden in that particular state. Next, we'll go to Missouri. And in Missouri, the way the vote looks now, with 63% of the precincts in, Joe Biden has a lead of 59.3 to 34.4. So Joe Biden is not yet at 2/3 of the vote. Bernie Sanders has a third of the vote. 5.0% of the vote there has gone to others. I don't know who the others are. They probably are the people who dropped out, and people still insisted on voting for them. And then Tulsi had 0.8%. So that's the Missouri. Up to this time, Biden, of course, has been declared the winner, as he was in Mississippi. But not all the votes are in yet. There's still a third of the vote, okay, to come in. Hopefully, Bernie will catch up, okay, a little more, make it a little closer in that state, since he just did a little campaigning there. In Michigan, Bernie's hopes were really dashed. Joe Biden has 53.1% of the vote, Bernie 39.3% of the vote. Again, we have others at 6.1%, probably includes Elizabeth Warren still in there, but also Buttigieg and Klobuchar and the others who were still on the ballot that people insisted on voting for. But anyway, that's with 54.76% of the vote. There is a possibility that that Bernie will get some more votes, that it will be closer than 53 to 39. It depends on where the absent votes are. Thus far in the Detroit area, see if I can get it right onto Detroit. I can't get the total for Wayne County here. I was able to reach it before with my arrow on the screen. Okay, Biden was winning there too, which was a surprise to me. I thought that Bernie would at least be very popular in Detroit since he's been there a number of times and he has very good support, okay, among the local people. Bernie's strength seemed to be, okay, in Ingham County, which is actually Lansing, Michigan. That's where Michigan State is. Bernie was stronger there than he was at the University of Michigan, okay, in Ann Arbor. Kind of proud of that because I got my PhD from Lansing, East Lansing actually, okay, from Michigan State. He had a small margin there, 47.3% to 44.1%. He also had a small margin in Kalamazoo and a small margin in Kent County, which I'm guessing is probably Flint, but I'm not sure if that, okay, is Flint. Yeah, a small margin of 48.1 or 46.0% there. Depending on where the outstanding votes still are, and normally Wayne County votes come in late, maybe Bernie will catch up, okay, a little more in Michigan. One can certainly hope. One won't know probably until tomorrow. But if Bernie can get over 40% there, of course, it would be very good. It would make it closer in Michigan, and therefore the delegate split would be a lot closer in Michigan. And so Bernie would lose less in Michigan than he's lost in the other states. Now, thus far, I hadn't seen any other results, but I'm looking now at the North Dakota vote. Okay, the North Dakota caucuses ended Tuesday evening. Only 10% of the precincts are reporting thus far. Joe Biden is at 26.2%. There are others that are taking up votes there. They have 33.9%. In fact, there in the caucus, it's Bernie 39.7% and the others 33.9%. Now, this is significant because I don't know whether any of the others have 15%. I assume they don't have 15%. If they did, they probably would be listed separately. But we have to see how that vote actually breaks down. It might be a situation where Bernie actually wins that caucus, which would be a little something for tonight. I'm not sure how many delegates were at stake actually there. It's a small number. It's a relatively small number, maybe 20 or something like that. I think one was 20 and one was 14 in terms of number of delegates, that is. think the North Dakota caucuses was something like 20 delegates, if I'm not mistaken. We don't have a delegate count here at this point, just a percent count, okay, of the caucuses. And the state party has yet to provide the results of the caucus, so we have to see how that works out. Maybe they'll try to steal it from Bernie there too. In Idaho, the polls close statewide in Idaho, okay, at 11 p.m., and that's a primary, and that's still 20 minutes from now. So we don't know how long it's going to take to count those votes, and we don't know what the results will be. Bernie won Idaho in 2016 and has a chance to win it now. So we have to wait to see. I don't think there are more than 14 or 15 delegates up for grabs there. But anyway, correct me if I'm wrong about that. But we'll just have to see later how these two states, Idaho and North Dakota, work out. Still remains for us to have any reported results from the state of Washington. I'm looking for a live update actually right now, and I'll tell you how that actually works out as soon as I get it. It's taking some time for it to come in. I don't know exactly why. I have a direct connection to the internet, and it's supposed to be very fast, but who knows? Who knows? It'll be in just a minute. But it won't be over, okay, in Washington. It'll take some time to count things there. It was last updated at 10:09, so it's almost a half hour since they updated. So there may be some results out there now. I'm not sure. But of course, the losses in Missouri and in Mississippi, and in Michigan, thus far, these results look fairly devastating. The party has been already signaling what it's going to try to do, and that is to tell Bernie in very loud terms that he has no path to the nomination, and that he now has to drop out and throw his support in back of Biden, whether he thinks Biden can win or not. I would strongly advise Bernie not to do that. Not only would I strongly advise Bernie not to do that, but I also believe that if Bernie were to do that, that he would be betraying those who supported him in this campaign. I don't think the party is more important than the country. I don't. And I also don't think the party has made the right choice here from the standpoint of the interests of the country and the standpoint of the electorate. I think the party rigged the primary. We know that Obama was involved in by getting people to drop out of the primary just before Super Tuesday. We know that all the endorsements that were ginned up by the elders in the party over the last couple of days before Super Tuesday greatly determined the votes that people were taking on Super Tuesday, especially when it came to black people in the South. But I think that even had an effect on black people up in the North. I think Biden's record was never properly vetted in the debates. I think if it had been properly vetted in the debates, that Biden would not be here now. There's no way he would be here now. If the other people had failed to drop out but had gone on fighting, then Biden's record would have gotten vetted in the debates because there would have been nothing else to do. And then Biden would not have been considered to be a viable candidate. The rout of Bernie in South Carolina was not enough to make Biden the front runner, not by itself. And it was not enough by itself to swing those Texas votes over to Biden. And it was not enough to swing some California votes over to Biden. That happened because of the endorsements, because of the sudden flood of high profile Democrats to go in back of Biden going into Super Tuesday. And then, of course, once the Super Tuesday lead was there and the mainstream was able to propagandize this for a week, and there were so many states for Bernie to campaign in, he was no longer able to stop the momentum of Biden in the 6 states that went to the polls today. So that's what happened. Okay. So I think there was rigging. Now, I'm using rigging in 2 ways here, and I'll explain the ways. First of all, the elders of the party, the same old superdelegates, and the previous leaders of the party, who in some quarters are still the leaders of the party, threw their weight in back of Joe Biden because they couldn't stand Bernie Sanders taking over the party, stopping the deal flows to them, and stopping the money coming from their donors. They could not stand that. They would not tolerate that. It was, in other words, the corruption in the system was turning on Bernie and was causing everybody to get in back of Joe Biden. So this was the establishment, and this was the corruption throwing its political weight behind a single candidate when theoretically the DNC, the DNC and its major leaders were supposed to be neutral and were supposed to give Bernie a fair shake in this particular primary. So the primary again was rigged, not so blatantly through superdelegates voting, but through superdelegates basically using their influence and leaders using their influence to get behind one candidate, not for the purpose of winning the election on behalf of the Democratic Party, because they didn't at all guarantee that, but for the purpose of blocking Bernie Sanders, who was going to bring us social change and social justice, and a Green New Deal, and all the things that people want. How can I say people want that? Because in every state they said they wanted it, including the states that voted tonight. A universal health care program polled well tonight. The Green New Deal polled well tonight. They were the major issues people were supporting. They were supporting those issues and they voted for Joe Biden. Why did they vote for Joe Biden? Electability, electability, electability. The elders in the Democratic Party said, we don't think Bernie's electable. We think Biden is electable. And the voters on Super Tuesday and tonight lost their faith. And they came to believe that in spite of Joe Biden losing all three of the first primaries and doing very badly in them, but they all came to believe, well, if all these people think that he's the more electable one, then we think that he's the more electable one too. They did not have confidence sufficiently in their own view of the situation, which before the movement of the party elders was showing that they were now thinking that maybe Bernie was more electable because he had won the early primaries. So the party establishment played their hand very brilliantly in South Carolina and very decisively in the run up to Super Tuesday. And then they used the momentum augmented by their allies in the mass media to produce the victory for Biden in the primaries tonight. So that's what happened. They rigged it from that point of view. But then there's another point of view, specifically the point of view of voter suppression and outright cheating with respect to the machines. There's evidence, very good evidence, that that went on in Texas and that went on, in Massachusetts. And the Minnesota results are also incredible. I mean, Biden had no presence there before Super Tuesday. And the night before, there's an endorsement from Klobuchar. So you telling me all of Klobuchar's people suddenly decided, oh, we're going to go over to Joe Biden now because she endorsed Joe Biden? That's extremely unlikely. Amy drops out of the race, and all of her voters decide to follow her like lemmings to Joe Biden? That's unbelievable. It suggests there was rigging of the machines in Minnesota. I don't think there was suppression of the vote there. In Texas, though, there was suppression of the vote, and that took place in precincts that were known to have specific demographics in them that were likely to be more favorable to Sanders than they were to Biden. And they didn't close precincts in those areas that they thought were going to be more favorable to Biden. So they had their thumbs on the scale. That is the narrative that I believe is true for the race so far. I don't think they played fair with Bernie. So therefore, I don't think that Bernie is obligated any longer to play fair with them. Nor do I think that Bernie ought to drop out now. I think we're through with about half the primary contest. Bernie will come out of tonight with still an appreciable amount, of delegates. Biden will have more. He'll probably emerge now with 300 more. But there are still many, many other primaries. And I believe that support for Biden is soft. It is not hard. It can easily waver. We saw how quickly it shifted on Super Tuesday. If Biden shows what we know to be true, that he is incompetent, and if Trump continues to hit him from now until the end of the primary campaign, I think that Biden is sure to continue to show that he's having a meltdown, cognitively speaking. And voters will then come to understand, that he is not a viable candidate. And the Democratic voters in these primaries want, they want to defeat Donald Trump. They're not like the elites. They're not interested in blocking Bernie Sanders for the sake of blocking Bernie Sanders. They want to beat Trump. That's why the electability issue is so important. As Biden starts melting down, as he starts to melt down, they're going to go back to Bernie. Now, perhaps that last is not so obvious, because how is Biden going to go down? The party and the mainstream press are going to hide Biden, try to hide him for the rest of the campaign, and win strictly by using an anti-Trump campaign. And Biden will put up a lot of ads, and everybody will say, "Oh, it's just unacceptable to have Trump. We've got to vote for Joe, Uncle Joe. He's a good guy. We have no reason to believe that he's not going to make a great candidate, because what we've seen so far is acceptable to us." And he was through all these debates, and we don't believe that he's unfit to be the president of the United States. And besides that, he's going to have a lot of help from the Obamas, and he's going to have a lot of help from Buttigieg, and from Klobuchar, and from Bloomberg, and from Jamie Dimon, and from all of his best friends who want him to do well. So that's going to be all right. He's not going to be going anywhere. And since Trump is so terrible, we're going to beat him. We're going to beat him. And then Trump is going to get into the campaign after the nomination, and he's just going to destroy Biden, because they won't be able to hide Biden from Trump. Trump is going to challenge Biden to debates. He's going to get in those debates, and he's going to make fun of him, and Biden is going to be totally incoherent. And that's going to bring out Trump's base, and it's going to persuade everyone else to stay at home. They may hate Trump, but they won't be able to get out of bed and go vote, or even early vote, for a candidate they know is not fit to be the president of the United States. How long do you think, how long does anybody think it will take Trump to expose Biden once the campaign actually starts? And how is Biden going to be able to avoid campaigning once it actually starts? So Biden recently had a campaign event, and he gave a 7-minute speech. He couldn't give longer than a 7-minute speech. He was that bad. That bad. He can't put coherent thoughts together for a very long time. And when attacked, he doesn't keep his cool. He gets excited, and he starts yelling and shouting and becoming really incoherent. Okay, and his memory is gone. His memory is gone. So, really, I think that the only one now who can really expose Biden is Bernie Sanders. We can't allow the Democrats to run someone who is so totally unfit to be the President of the United States as Joe Biden. I mean, better Cory Booker than Joe Biden. Better Kirsten Gillibrand than Joe Biden. Better Barbara Lee than Joe Biden. Better any number of people than Joe Biden. What I think Bernie has to do now is to bring the truth to the American people about Joe Biden, the truth about his whole record. I don't know whether there's going to be a reaction against Bernie, so they'll never nominate him anyway. That may happen. In other words, that may happen. It may be Bernie will stop Joe Biden from getting a majority of the votes. And then, because of the shift of public opinion, when it goes into the second round, that the superdelegates will not nominate Joe Biden, because by then it will be apparent to everybody in the country that Joe Biden is going to be totally incompetent. So maybe the superdelegates will will join with the others to nominate someone else that they think they have control over. And it'll probably be someone that they think can escape attacks from Donald Trump. Is most capable of standing up to Donald Trump. I don't know who they think that will be. They're probably stupid enough to nominate Hillary Clinton again. But if they nominate someone other than Bernie Sanders, at that point they'll probably be interested in actually winning. And as long as they nominate someone who's not too terrible, it would be preferable to get, well, I don't know. I don't even know if it would be preferable to get Mr. Dumbjohn out of there. I really don't know, okay, if that is the case. We'll learn more over the next few months when we see the total reaction of Donald Trump to the crisis we are going through now. What we do know, though, is that if Joe Biden gets in and starts supporting the TPP and the TPIP, okay, and the TISA again, the three neoliberal trade treaties that Obama wanted to pass, and he starts pushing those again, we'll come down with a worse foreign and trade policy than Donald Trump has been pursuing. And don't think his foreign policy, Biden's foreign policy towards, say, Venezuela, will be any better. Or his foreign policy towards Saudi will be any better. Or his foreign policy with respect to Israel will be any better than Trump's. It's all highly doubtful. So Biden is just unacceptable for the presidency of the United States. And Bernie, by staying in the race and fighting through all of the other primaries, is the only one in a position to show that he is unacceptable before the nomination, before the nominating convention. And it's essential that he be shown to be unacceptable before the nominating convention, because if Bernie drops out, there'll be nothing to stop the nomination, okay, of Joe Biden. So I think that's where we stand at this point. I think where we go from here is to urge Bernie, shout at Bernie, pressure Bernie, not to get out of the race, but to stay in and fight for us, because it's not about me. Okay, it's about us. And us, I believe, wants Bernie to continue to fight, continue to bring the issues to the American people, continue to bring the movement to the American people, and continue to bring the issue of Biden's competence, which is not a personal attack. It is an issue. It's a real issue. It's a true issue. It is the electability issue itself. The mainstream wanted to make the electability issue the main issue. Well, that main issue is nearly equivalent right now to Biden's competence. So they have to be ready and they have to be prepared to prove Biden's competence. But the only one in a position to make them prove it is Bernie Sanders. Now, there's going to be a debate, as you know, on March 15th. Okay, the DNC has already announced there's not going to be an audience there, because, the coronavirus, you can't have crowds. So it's going to be a small gathering. Don't know what the format will be. I know Bernie wants it to be at a lectern, as the other debates were, and have the same kind of arrangement with just the two of them on stage. I know the mainstream and the Democratic Party want to put them both at a table to have a nice, polite conversation that won't expose Joe Biden too badly over a 2-hour period. Okay. We'll see whether Bernie can force them into actually doing the same format as they had before through public pressure. But when Bernie gets into that debate, regardless of the format, he has to come to the fore with the issue of Biden's electability, primarily a matter of Biden's perceived competence to function in the presidency if he wins the election. That's got to be the attack now. He's got to do it. Now I'm going to check in once more and check to see whether there have been any more results. We do have a result from Washington State with 20% of the precincts reporting Biden is ahead by 35% to 32%, by 3%. I don't know where those votes come from. It's just changed. Biden is at 34.6%. Bernie is at 31.6%. So we're looking at 3% of the vote there difference. They're at 24% of the precincts in now, 23.85%. So Bernie can still pull it out, okay, in Washington and get a victory in that state. Okay, let's see if there are any results in Idaho. They close at 11 p.m. Biden in Idaho is at 42.1%. Bernie is at 32.3%. But there are only 1.35% of the precincts in yet. So that vote is inconclusive. There hasn't been a declaration, okay, of a winner yet, as there hasn't been in Washington either. There's no declaration, okay, of a winner. It's too close. These, by the way, are situations where the Democratic Party cheats. So we got to watch those very carefully. I think after this is over and investigations have occurred, people have had time to investigate, we will find that a number of these states in the primaries up to now was stolen from Bernie. In North Dakota, in the caucuses, we have an update of that at 10:30 p.m. Bernie is at 39.7% in the North Dakota caucuses. Others are still at 33.9%. I don't know what the hell others are doing there. And Biden is at 26.2%. This is still with 10% of the precincts reporting, which was the case before when we looked in on here before. So the question is, what's taking so long to get the rest of the caucus done? That's an interesting question. So that's the way the results are looking. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn to you now for discussion. And we'll see what you, my viewers, have to say. And Barbara says the rigging was done for Joe. Kate Clark Ryan says, did you all see the clip of Biden yelling and cussing at a worker in Detroit about guns? Yes. He definitely has dementia big time. These outbursts are proof. I don't know that they're proof, but he's certainly looking like someone in grave cognitive decline. The Joe Biden of even 4 years ago would not have been prone to these outbursts of temper that we're seeing here. That wasn't like Joe Biden. I mean, he could be salty, okay, in earlier races, but he knew when to treat people with kid gloves. When he debated Sarah Palin in 2008, he was purely a gentleman. He was very, very nice. You got to check out the 2008 performance versus what we're seeing from him now. Steve says, our only hope is Biden is losing his mind completely, which is very possible. He doesn't have to be losing his mind completely to be an incompetent president. He just has to be someone who can't remember things from one moment to the next. Kate says, hate to wish that on Biden, but I agree, Steve. Barbara says, but they can cheat if they want. They are a private entity. Legally, they can cheat if they want because they are a private entity, and the Supreme Court is unlikely to side with us if we made a claim that they committed fraud upon us. Yes, that's the situation we have now. But we still have to fight against the cheating. We have to call it out. We have to make clear that it happened. Why? Because either we take over the Democratic Party or we break the Democratic Party. Those are the only two alternatives for us. The progressive movement has to win. We have to win. Okay, or the human race goes bye-bye. It is that serious. It is that serious. The establishment will not act in time to meet the climate emergency. The lives of our children, the lives of our grandchildren, in some cases, the lives of our great grandchildren are at stake. Evelina says, there's another centrist would be put in his place, I'm sure. Yes, another centrist would be, but that other centrist at least might be able to think through some problems. And the other centrist might be somebody like Cory Booker, who's been known to risk his life for other people. Cory Booker is smart enough to know about the climate emergency, and he knows enough to know that something has to be done about it. There's at least a hope that he would be a better president than some of the other bozos, and a better president than Harris, who, in my view, would be a disaster. And of course, a better president, okay, than Amy Klobuchar, who won't do the deficit spending necessary to meet the crisis, and a better president than Buttigieg. Buttigieg would be absolutely awful. Kay says, probably so, Evelina. And Devora says, my daughter, I'm beginning to wonder how much of these results are real. Maybe the plan is to make as few people interested in voting as possible on the true left. I think that's part of the plan. That may not be the only plan, but they've been following a number of plans, a complex plan to try to take this away from Bernie. That's definitely been going on. Steve says the results are not real at all. Kay says, but voter suppression is a real thing too. There's more than one way to suppress the vote. In other words, you can actually suppress it by closing polling stations in certain districts that are known to be likely to go for a particular person. You can also suppress it by passing laws before the vote that will disenfranchise certain people from certain of the demographics. That's been going on in some of the Republican states. Okay, but I think in the Democratic states, the establishment favors closing the polling places and cheating with the machines, okay, rigging, okay, in that way. And now, of course, they're bringing the force of cable news and its claims about how momentum is going. It's the momentum that's being used. It's the momentum that they're trying to use now to suppress the vote in the remaining primaries. They're saying that Bernie has no chance now, that he's lost in this round, okay, of primaries. And they're saying he's got to get out. He's got to give up so we can all unite behind Joe Biden and against Trump. That's what they're using. And if he stays in for the additional primaries, they're going to tell voters he should be getting out. He's disloyal to the party. He should be getting out. He needs to get out. And they're going to try to suppress the vote in that way by driving Bernie's negatives up because he's in there. That's going to be their strategy to suppress the vote going forward. We have to resist that. We have to drive up Biden's negatives by pointing out how incompetent he is. We got to fight that battle on the web. We got to fight it on the web. By the way, we got to fight it whether Bernie stays in or Bernie doesn't stay in. We've got to do whatever we can to break this party. It cannot be allowed to sabotage the progressive movement any longer. Because if it is, we won't be able to counter the climate emergency. We won't be able to stop the deaths that are coming to people because they don't have health insurance, because they don't have a Medicare for All bill. Excuse my camera, which is for some reason going on and off tonight. I don't know why, but I can turn it on again. Looked like it was going to go on again, but it did not. Hang in there with me. You will see me again. Okay, I think it's on again. Let me double check. Yes, it is on again. So that's good. So Bob Hornick says, I will destroy Biden. He's not fit. I think that is something that the Us Not Me campaign has to take up for itself. We will destroy Biden. He's not fit. Ginger says Bernie terrifies the establishment. Absolutely true, because Bernie is serious. And Barbara says Biden is about to be destroyed. And Steve says Bernie supporters will not vote for Biden. I will not vote for Biden. I will not vote for Biden. And I hope all of you will go along with that too. Even though Bernie will campaign for him like he did for Hillary, I think we've got to prevail upon Bernie not to campaign for Biden. We have to tell him we don't want him to campaign for Biden. We want him to campaign for us, to continue to campaign for us, not for Biden. Cory Booker's girlfriend voted for Bernie. Yeah, Rosario Dawson. Yes. Yes. Cory Booker's partner. Cory Booker's partner. I'm well aware of that. I'm well aware of her views. I'm well aware that it might be a good thing to have her the first lady in the White House to Cory Booker's presidency. That would probably be better than Elizabeth Warren any day. Ginger says, and yet they keep rigging the primaries to benefit one because Biden can now be manipulated. He's a tool now. Sure, he can be manipulated. Entirely manipulated. Who will he be manipulated by? Most probably by Obama and by Bloomberg. I'm waiting for Michelle Obama to be declared his vice presidential candidate. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. Barbara says, yes, anyone would be better. There's an article that said Hillary is going to be Biden's running mate. If Obama allows that, then Obama is much stupider than I think he is. He knows that those same working class people who partially came back to Biden tonight will go away just as quickly if Hillary is his vice presidential candidate. I don't think they're going to do that. They know the country has had enough of Hillary. That's why Trump was elected. Nancy Blackmar has joined us. Lori Keller says, why didn't the DNC just write number 45 in? Trying to not lose hope. Look, what I have to say about this, Lori, is this. Our progressive movement today is a movement for the long term. It was ignited by Bernie Sanders in recent years, but we're building it for the long term. It is the Us Not Me movement. It is the second coming, of FDR. That's our movement. We have to fight for that. We have to keep on fighting for that, whether Bernie falls by the wayside or not. We cannot lose hope because it's not just about this coming election. It's about 2022 also, and it's about 2024. It might be too late to mitigate some of the damage coming from the climate emergency if we get somebody in by 2025. But we still might be able to limit the damage if we get someone there. And that someone pushes the Green New Deal fast and hard. We still might be able to get to where we need to be by 2033 or something like that, even if we can't do it by 2030. So don't lose hope. The fight is not over. I am 81. If it's not over for me, it shouldn't be over for you because I'm assuming you're younger than that. Don't lose hope. Barbara Wernick says, it is an issue. Can we post memes and links to Biden's dementia issues? Absolutely. Why not? Why not? Post them all the time. Okay, and Linda Evangeline says, frack the DNC. Who would even want to be a Democrat with what we know about them? It's not a question of that. The question is, we would never want to be their kind of Democrat. Would we want to take over the Democratic Party if we could? Yes, we could, because there's advantage in that. Why is there advantage in that? Because the Democratic Party is on the ballot in all 50 states. And the party machinery can be very powerful, as we have just seen. We don't want to simply give that up. Steve Wolfbrand says, and how can Bernie keep fighting, Doc? He won't be able to have rallies due to Corona. There will be a press blackout. His money will dry up. He needs to run the campaign through social media. He needs to run the campaign on the ground with his volunteers, canvassing. And making phone calls. And he needs to buy television time. He'll be able to buy television time. And he has his own network on the web that he's been setting up. Let him continue to set that up. Yep. And Barbara says, he must make it count. Protect Joe or the American people. Choose. We must put it that way to him. He can protect Joe or he can protect the American people by continuing to fight. Okay, and Gina Marie says healthcare needs to be a main topic, okay, in that particular debate. Healthcare alone cannot carry him over the line. He'll never abandon Medicare for all. It's his signature issue. The Green New Deal is another signature issue. Forgiving student debt is another signature issue. But the electability issue can only be swung now with an attack on Biden's competence. Sandy says it should be a real debate, not a coffee talk show. Yep. But they don't want that. Susan Teague says it is clear that the establishment Democrats are more afraid of Bernie than Trump. There is a lot of money at stake, a huge amount of money. What we have witnessed since Bernie began to run, and more recently since Super Tuesday went on steroids for Biden and candidates sold out. Why hasn't Bernie addressed Biden's mental issues? I bet that Tulsi would. It's too late to get behind Tulsi, even though she's in. There's no way to get her the exposure needed. There's no way to shift the whole movement over to her. We have to stick with Bernie. Maybe we could follow a combined strategy. Stick with Bernie for the Democratic primary, and meanwhile, support somebody else, if he won't do it, as the candidate for the Movement for a People's Party. Steve, there's no way Biden wins Washington. It's so rigged. But Evelina says, a friend of mine said Biden is just holding somebody's place. He's another centrist. Yep. Okay, and Linda Evangeline says, Dem exit. Yeah, Dem exit. Gina Marie says, yeah, Minnesota was. It was really sad, wasn't it? Okay. Evelina said, because he said he would not. He has every excuse to say, look, he also said he was going to fight for us. He also said that it's us, not me. He said that continuously. So his statements are in conflict. If it's us, not me, he's got to keep running. He's got to run as a third-party candidate, if necessary. He's got to refuse to drop out, because Biden is not about us. Trump is not about us. And us is not only about beating Trump. It doesn't help us to beat Trump and have someone worse than Trump come around in 2024 from the fascist party, the Republican Party. Steve Wolfbrand says, North Dakota has to beat up some Indians before they can finish counting. Or perhaps use some fire hoses. Have you, wasn't that South Dakota though? Forget. No, it was North Dakota. And Lana Dell says, have you looked into this, who the superdelegates are supporting? Last time I looked, there was some for Bernie. There was some for Bernie then, but the superdelegates are party creatures. With the momentum shifting over now to Biden, it's doubtful that Bernie can get more than 100 of them. So Linda says, so is anyone here still a Dem after you know what they're doing? I don't know what you mean by still a Dem. I'm for the Economic Bill of Rights. I'm for a Green New Deal. I'm for the platform of Franklin Delano Roosevelt that is modernized but to the present day with a Green New Deal. I think that makes me a Dem. I think Bernie Sanders is the only true Dem still in the race. All the others are fake Dems. They're fake Dems. Bernie Sanders has to make that case too. That if someone's a Democrat, they have no business voting for anybody but him. Lana, can you give some info on how a third party would be formed? Well, the Movement for a People's Party has to register as a party and get people on the ballot in as many of the 50 states as they can. Now, they might not be able to do it, in this election. Therefore, the Green Party then becomes an alternative. The Green Party is probably on enough ballots. Okay, and so Linda Evangeline said, it is that serious that we need to Dem exit? Okay, so I think we can do two things. We can fight it out in the Democratic Party, or Bernie can fight it out with our support. And we can also Dem exit. I mean, we can dem exit. There are a lot of primaries that are over. So the people who voted in those primaries are now free to dem exit. There's no penalty. Okay? They can re-register as Dems just before the general if Bernie wins a nomination there, okay, and they want to do that. But now, okay, I think the progressives whose states have already gone should probably dem exit and register either as Greens, or if the Movement for a People's Party has the infrastructure built out yet, then register as members of the Movement for a People's Party. We can see how far along that is. Evelina says, for now, yes, as long as Bernie is in. We don't have to stay registered as Democrats in those states that have already voted in the primary. Because why were we registered as Democrats for those states? So we could vote for Bernie. So those of us who still want to vote for Bernie can stay registered as Democrats until the primaries are over. Let the Democrats see that the way they've been running this campaign is costing the party members, that they're losing members who are registering for other parties. Lana points out, in Minnesota, we have an open primary, so we don't register as one party or the other. Okay. So in Minnesota, there's no problem, but there's probably a problem in Pennsylvania. But that may end now in a very short time from now. As soon as we have, the Axilla primary, which is April 28th. You would think the seniors would know that Joe has dementia. I think a lot of them probably know that he's not all there, but they also don't like Trump, and they don't believe Bernie is electable. Because truth to tell, the seniors do vote all the time. But I can tell you, most of them are not very well informed. McKay says, if we can get a People's Party, I will change in a heartbeat. And Randy Hedgebeth has joined, and Deborah Wilson has joined. Hi, folks. And Linda Evangeline says, the candidates are through their support to Biden, they're putting themselves first, and what that will bring them, whether he will win, okay, or not. It may bring them donations as they go forward. I mean, Pete has certainly gained in the party. He probably thinks that next time he runs for governor or senator, okay, in Indiana, he'll have a lot of donor support. He'll have a lot of money backing him, and that maybe he'll win, okay, in Indiana. Barbara says, we're electing a man with dementia. What the hell is the end game here? The end game is probably to replace Biden as time goes by with his vice president, either formally by having the cabinet and the vice president actually declare him as incompetent, so the vice president then becomes the president, or informally, with Jill directing Joe to rely more and more on his vice president for making the actual decisions. That's probably the end game. Probably the end game. But Jill Biden will be First Lady. So she'll be playing, okay, an active role, I'm sure, in advising Joe about who he ought to rely upon, whose counsel he should take. Kay says, laugh out loud. I saw a clip on YouTube today where a progressive was calling people to support Biden. Not really, though. And a 90-year-old told him that Biden had dementia. Certainly looks that way, doesn't it? Okay, and Lana said in Kansas City they turned the mayor away. She said He was not actually registered correctly. They had his name backwards. He ended up voting, but how many others did not? And Linda Evangeline says Fox News is more honest about Biden than anyone else. Well, Fox News has a vested interest in being honest about Joe Biden. Why shouldn't they be? Especially with Joe Biden shaping up as the candidate, okay, the Democratic Party. They're going to want to tell the truth about him, right? For once, they're not going to lie about him. They're going to tell the truth. Point out all the lies he's told over the years and all the dementia he has. Steve says seniors only watch the MSM and they don't talk about Biden's dementia. That's true, Steve. There's a reason why they don't watch the MSM. And one of those reasons is that a lot of them don't have computers. And a lot of them are not on Facebook. Or if they are, they don't get into any of the political stuff on Facebook. It's only family stuff. And they don't do Twitter. And they rely on their news for Fox or on MSNBC, okay, or on CNN. That's where they go. Linda says, start sharing memes about Joe Biden. Oh, yeah, they will think we are Russians. They'll say we're Russians. Whatever we do. Okay, and Lori Keller says, how do we break the party? We break the party by splitting it, by having all the progressives go to a third party, by being willing to walk out of it. If they nominate Joe Biden and go forward with it, okay, on this occasion, we have to leave. We have to leave. We cannot stay in it anymore. Steve says a Democratic Party should die. Linda says we have a voice on social media, and that is huge. Yes, it is, but we're dependent on certain corporations for social media. On Twitter, of course, on Facebook, on Google. We're dependent on them all. We need corporations that side with us. And Lori Keller says, I refuse to vote for Z. Ginger says, I'm Bernie or bust. Linda said, we should have gone all the way for Tulsi. There was no movement behind Tulsi. We couldn't have built the movement around her because Bernie has too much of the progressive movement. For him to lose the progressive movement, he's got to now fold his cards and go in full bore for Donald Trump. If he does that, then this time he will have lost us. Because in 2016, he could give the excuse that he would swallow his pride and live to fight again. But we know now that in 2024, he's going to be too old to fight. But God forbid he may not even be here. We know this is Bernie's last hurrah. He's got to win it now, or he's got to fold his cards and enjoy his last years. If he does it by going over to the Democratic Party side and campaigning for Biden the way he did for Hillary, this time we all have to refuse to be shepherded into the Biden camp. We have to reject the role of Bernie as the shepherd. We had to do that. And we have to get cracking on building a party for 2022 and 2024. And we got to see which Congress people will go with us. We got to see if people like Ilhan Omar, okay, and Rashida, okay, and AOC and Ro Khanna and also Jayapal, we got to see whether people like that will go with us. We got to see that. Laurie Keller says, Biden, no way I will vote for him. Tulsi says, took down Harris in 3 minutes. Imagine her with Biden. She was in on some debates with Biden alone. She never took him down. She didn't want to take him down. She felt sorry for him. I think she knew Beau Biden. And she felt a kinship with Joe Biden. That's why she never tried to take down Biden. I don't know if she would take him down now in that way. But in any case, she's not going to get into a debate, so she's not going to be able to take him down. Kay says, I worked in the old state mental hospital before Reagan closed them on male crisis. I trained 6 months for that job and learned all about I learned all about disorders of the mind. Okay, I stutter. That is a real stutter. So at that point, I blocked on mental disorders, but my mind didn't block, just my tongue. Also, my mother-in-law had dementia, and I worked in geriatric hospitals, so I know it when I see it. Still, people want to argue with me and tell me I'm wrong. What the hell? And Laurie says, we talked about Bernie nonstop on Facebook, but getting ignored. Sandy says, we can't lose hope. And Linda Evangeline says, Michelle Obama, seriously, she was all about getting healthy food into schools, and that food was all contaminated with pesticides. Meanwhile, she and her family were bragging about their gardens with organic veggies. She was an idiot and a phony. I think Michelle Obama is not an idiot, but she is a phony. But they would nominate her for the vice presidency because she's a woman, she's black, she is very bright, and also she would bring along Barack with her to make the real decisions. And she and Jill Biden, and Barack will surround him and will support him and will be making the real decisions. That's what's going to come out. If they decide to run her as vice president, that's what's going to come out in this campaign. There are going to be all kinds of implications that is what is going to go on. And Lori says, thanks for your response. Randy says, how about a third party run? Well, I think that if he is not nominated at the convention, after the case has been made that Biden is incompetent, I think he should make a third party run. Okay, I really do, because I think it will be time to break the Democratic Party. Reason? Because they won't do anything about the climate emergency if they win again. They're not willing to get rid of the filibuster. They're not willing to deficit spend. They're all tied up in the politics of false fiscal responsibility. I call that a faux fiscal responsibility. They're all about that. They're all about the lies. They're all about the cheating. They cannot get us through the climate emergency. They cannot get us through the health emergency. They refuse to do it. They're too tied up with the plutocrats. All they want to do is build a plutocracy. And by then, our chance for survival will be gone. Gone. But all movements need a leader. Who will step up to that role? Well, beyond Bernie, it probably has to be AOC or Ro Khanna. It's going to have to be one of the two. There's nobody in the Senate who can step up to that role, okay, at this point. And there's nobody outside who could step up to that role. Kay says, okay, I can't wait that long. Okay, I'm over it now. Okay, and Linda says, we need to start screaming and not stop. Deborah says, hope we're all dem exiters. And Bonnie is here. No, she's not here. She doesn't want to say anything. Kay says, we need a euthanasia option. I can't think of that old movie, but I'm ready now. Soylent Green, Kay. Soylent Green. Edward G. Robinson exercised the option, okay, the euthanasia option. Ooh. And the cop in that movie, who was cast as the hero, was Charlton Heston. Chuck Heston, the NRA guy himself. Okay, and Linda Evangeline said, has it ever gotten this bad before? Have we ever recovered from such a travesty before? Well, we recovered from slavery before. That was pretty damn bad, but we had some time to recover from that. And we fought a great war to recover from that. This might, in the end, come down to a civil war. I don't know. But what we're getting from both parties is totally unacceptable. Steve says they've got Obama wearing a Trump hat meme, quote. No wonder Obama hasn't endorsed Biden, unquote. You think Obama is not going to endorse Biden? Okay, if Biden should nominate his wife as the vice president, as his vice presidential nominee, I think he'll endorse Biden then. But I really expect him to endorse Biden anyway very soon. He's probably just been a little circumspect about this because he doesn't want to do it until he can say for sure that Bernie is counted out. And Kay says, it was Soylent Green, the movie from years ago. I know, it's one of my favorite movies. And Russ Gorman says, I've got to call it a night. See you again soon. Thanks for coming, Russ. Very, very glad you've been here tonight. Everybody, please share this. And please do me the honor of sharing, liking, and subscribing. Sharing, liking, and subscribing the video when it goes up on my YouTube channel at Joseph M. Firestone. Okay, I'm on YouTube. Okay, it's Joseph M. Firestone. And it would be very good if you could go there and you could share, like, and subscribe. I need to grow my subscriptions in that particular channel. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm coming back now for a few more comments. And then, okay, I'm going to call it a night. Steve says Bernie or Vest. See you in Milwaukee. And Kay says, not funny, Steve. I'm done. The People's Party convention is going to be in Milwaukee, or at least the movement for a People's Party convention. Evelina replying to Linda says, I think not. Gina Marie says, agreed. Becky Hadley has joined, and Lori Keller says, there are still calling Bernie a communist. They're idiots. No, I shouldn't say they're idiots. Mm-hmm. It's effective with some people in the United States. That's too bad. Whatever we do, they're going to call our leader a communist. Screw them. Whoever our leader will be, I can assure you, he won't be a communist. Even if our leader were to happen in the end to be a Marxist, he still wouldn't be a communist. Because a communist is a Marxist and Leninist. And we'll never go with somebody like that. Gina Marie says, I agree that Bernie is the only true Dem. Bring the party home. Bring the party home to FDR. Somebody's got to cast themselves as the reincarnation and the modernization, okay, of FDR. And Geraldine Chester, Code Pink, along with other orgs, and Max Blumenthal have filed with the election board for an investigation of the DNC. Well, the Republicans, well, let's see what happens. I'm all for investigations. I'm all for legal actions. I'm all for harassing them. Kay says, I'm sick of losing everything for nothing, Linda. I'm 66 and I have no hope for a life that I care to live. Wow. And Linda says, how do we educate the people about the candidates? How can one person make a difference? Steve says, I'll be out again after voting the 17th. Lori says, okay, I have already caucused in the Iowa. So now do I leave the Democratic Party? Yes, leave the Democratic Party now. Why not? I think I'll leave the Democratic Party too. I'll see what alternatives I have. I'll be free to vote for anybody I want to vote for in the election. Kay says, I voted for Bernie absentee ballot here in Ohio. But this is Ohio. Will it be counted? I wish I knew. I don't know, Kay. I don't know. Deborah says, if you voted, yes, bail. And Linda says, Joe has a disgusting past. I never most of this without Fox. Disgusting. Someone just published something, in Medium. 125 reasons not to vote for Joe Biden.
They're going to have a show with a debate with no people.
Yeah, I pointed that out. Yeah, they're going to have a debate with no people, with no feedback to the candidates. All the feedback is going to be online. Linda says, we can make a difference. Kay says, I'm tired, Linda. Too damn tired of it all. Kay, we can't afford you to be tired. We need you to fight with us. We need everyone to fight with us. Steve says, I'm sticking with outrage. Linda says, what can we do? Guerrilla marketing? Any guerrilla marketing we can do will be helpful. Susan Eldridge has joined, and Lana says, I was thinking arsenic and old lace. Linda says, I will make up flyers and leave them in restrooms on the sink counters. Guerrilla marketing. Put info flyers in anything that you can imagine.
And toilet paper rolls.
Yeah, Bonnie says, yeah, put the flyers on toilet paper rolls. Put Joe Biden flyers on toilet paper rolls. That's it. And Kay says, night all, great to chat with you all. And Sandy shared, and Steve Gonzo said 30 plus tonight. And Jim Bird has joined. Laurie says thanks, and Dolores Pierce has joined. Kathy asks, would you vote for Biden in the general? Okay, if you were in a swing state. Okay, the answer is I am in a swing state. And at this point, I don't think that I would vote for Biden. I'm thinking I'm going to vote for a third party right now. I don't know what Biden could say to get me to vote for him because I know that Biden is incompetent, and I know we can't have an incompetent in the presidency, nor can we have Trump in the presidency. So we've got to make it a third choice. We still have months before the election. We have to organize and give people a third choice. We have to make it apparent, okay, to the Democratic Party that if they nominate Joe Biden, it will be a third choice. Steve says they're going to shorten Biden's speeches to Barack Obama and good night. That's probably true. Sandy says, put Joe Biden's face on the toilet paper. And Linda Evangeline says, yes. Okay, folks. Good night. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow night with further reflections. I'm sure people need a night, okay, to digest this second very, very large disappointment. One last look at what's happening, okay, in Washington. In Washington, we have a little change in the picture with 67.15 of the precincts in. Others, people who have already dropped out. Oh, that was probably oh, I know what the others is caused by. States that have the early voting have people who cast votes already for people who were in before and who were not able to change their votes to either Bernie or Joe. So 33.4% of the vote in Washington was an early vote cast for other people. Bernie is in second place, and obviously he's going to win the primary because nobody in the others category is going to have more than 15%. He's now ahead in Washington, 32.7% to 32.5%, 0.2 of a point. Tulsi Gabbard is at 0.8% in Washington. So that's where they stand now. There's still a third of the vote to come in. At this point, of course, we have no idea whether that's going to come in for Biden, okay, or for Bernie. And we have no idea whether there's been any cheating in Washington. I tend to think of Washington, though, as a more clean gene state. So maybe that won't happen. Okay, in Idaho, we have Biden at 46.9% and Bernie at 39.8% in that particular primary. So Bernie is 7 points behind with 40% in. He probably could still win, okay, in Idaho. It would be, of course, very good if he won. It would make things look better. In North Dakota, Bernie is now at 43.8% of the vote in the caucuses there. Joe Biden is at 31.9% of the vote. The others are at 23.9% of the vote. But so far, we have only 17.5% of the precincts that are reporting. But Bernie has a 12-point lead. So it is likely, unless there's cheating going on, that Bernie's lead will hold up in the North Dakota caucuses. So it could be that Bernie could still win on the three of the states. He won't gain too many delegates from winning three of the states, but he will stem the tide somewhat. So he may be able to come out of the night with only 150 delegates down. I'm sorry, 250 delegates down to Joe Biden, which would leave some hope for the future. But before I leave, I have to mention for sure here that March 17th does not look good, okay, unless Bernie can really hit a home run in the March 15th debates, because on March 17th, which is next Tuesday, we have the Arizona primary, which has 67 delegates, the Illinois primary, 155 delegates, and the Ohio primary with 136 delegates. And Biden and Florida with 219 delegates. Biden looks almost insurmountable in Florida, okay, at this point, okay, unless he really shows that Biden is incompetent in the debate and word circulates very, very fast, and there's a flight of the black voters in these states, including Florida, away from Biden in the primary on March 17th. So even if Bernie were to win the three states, it still doesn't look good for him next Tuesday. So, on that note of reality, okay, I'm going to say good night. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Try to sleep well. Try to have a wonderful night. Try to recognize that this is a movement. It may take a longer time to get it to win, but we have no other alternative than to keep on fighting. So let's do that. Okay. Everybody have a good night.